The first scream wasn't mine. It came from somewhere down the block, a ragged wail swallowed by the wind and the low hum of a flickering street lamp. I didn't flinch. I just tightened my grip on the steering wheel, the leather groaning under my fingers. The warehouse loomed in front of me, swallowed in fog and shadows, its windows boarded and broken like shattered teeth. Someone had tagged the side in crimson spray paint, "No exit." Fitting. Family dinner. They still called it that. Like it meant warmth, not ritual humiliation. Like it was love, not judgment on fine china. I killed the engine. The wipers screeched one final arc and froze mid-swipe, like they couldn't bear to watch what came next. My reflection in the cracked rear view looked pale, clinical. A corpse prepping for autopsy. I adjusted Grandma's pearl earring, a relic from a time I pretended to believe in second chances. The wind slapped at my coat as I stepped out. My heels clicked across broken pavement littered with damp leaves and cigarette ash. Above the steel door, an old security light buzzed on, flickering like it might explode. They'd moved here after Elizabeth's big promotion. The old garment district turned cold-blooded luxury. Condos with iron staircases and rooftop lounges. Exposed brick and no soul. The door opened before I knocked. Patricia's arrived, my mother called out, voice flat as a coroner's report. Not an announcement. A warning shot. Elizabeth filled the doorway like a smirk with legs. Her navy trench coat clung to her like armor, the Atlas Corp pin on her chest gleaming like a bullet casing. Not a hair out of place. God forbid. Still driving that antique, she said, arching one surgically sculpted brow. Didn't know they still made cars that bleed oil. I stepped past her without blinking. Didn't know they still made people without hearts. Her laugh was short. Sharp. She let the door slam behind me. The hallway smelled like eucalyptus and bleach. Framed photos lined the walls, Elizabeth's awards, Elizabeth shaking hands with important men, Elizabeth on the cover of some business rag. My face was a ghost in the background of one, blurred out by glare. In the dining room, my father stared into his scotch like it owed him something. The chandelier overhead buzzed faintly, casting fractured light across the sterile gray table. The plates gleamed. So did the knives. "We put you by Aunt Sandra," my mother said without lifting her eyes from the table settings. I didn't move. "I'll sit here," I said, my voice low and controlled, pulling out the chair directly across from Elizabeth. A flick of her eyes. A pause. "Suit yourself," she said. The air snapped with tension. First course, salmon. Of course. It always bled a little too pink in the center. "They just announced it," Elizabeth said, picking up her wine like it was a mic. "I'm the youngest senior VP in Atlas history." Dad lifted his glass with the dead-eyed pride of a man clapping at a funeral. "That's my girl." I smiled without teeth. "Congrats." Elizabeth leaned in, voice dipped in honey and arsenic. "Still playing entrepreneur? That must be charming. Do you get paid in likes?" Mom chimed in like a tranquilizer dart. "Elizabeth, please. Patricia's trying." "I am," I said. "Especially interested in that Amanda merger. Hell of a time to inherit a digital swamp." Her fingers stilled around her glass. A flash in her eyes. "Gone in a blink." "Handled," she said. "We're already replatforming." "Impressive," I said. "Considering half their systems still run on Windows 95. A silence bloomed across the table like mold. Dad coughed into his glass. Mom suddenly remembered the neighbor's kitchen remodel. Then Elizabeth broke the hush with a clearing of her throat, deliberate, theatrical. "There's more," she said. "They called me in this morning. The board." She didn't blink. "I'm getting expanded authority. Both companies. Full integration under me. It's basically a CEO role in all but title." My napkin folded itself in my lap, corner by corner, with slow surgical care. "Practically," I said. She gave me that look, pity painted over with smugness. It must be hard. Living off scraps. All that, independence. Her voice turned glassy. Does it ever get lonely? No structure. No one to answer to. No one at all. I set my fork down. It clicked against the plate. The sound cracked like a gunshot in the silence. My eyes never left hers. Her smile twitched. She was already bleeding. She just didn't know it yet. The fork hit the plate like a blade meeting bone. The sound echoed, crisp, final. Elizabeth blinked, just once. Her lips parted, but no words came. She didn't expect resistance. She expected the usual retreat. But tonight, I didn't come to retreat. My fingers curled around the rim of my glass. Cool crystal, slick with condensation. I let the silence breathe. Let it stretch until the room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were watching. I can imagine, I said finally. A world where promotions by delusion. Sounds familiar. Her smile cracked, but she masked it with a sip of wine. Dry red. Something French. Something expensive. It stained her mouth like blood. I'm not deluded, she said softly. I'm in control. There's a difference. And yet, I murmured, leaning back, you keep talking like someone trying to convince herself. Aunt Sandra coughed into her napkin, eyes darting between us like she'd wandered into a gunfight with no ammo. Dad swirled the ice in his glass, the sound of it like bones rattling in a tomb. Mom stabbed her asparagus like it had insulted her. Elizabeth's voice dropped. Careful, Maggie. That name. No one else dared to use it anymore. I let it hang. What are you going to do? I said, low and even. Demote me off the family tree? Again? Her eyes flared. Just a flicker. But it was there, the panic, the edge. The certainty that someone had just stepped into her territory barefoot and smiling. Then her tone shifted. Calculated. Smooth as ice. You know, I've always admired how stubborn you are. Even when it's pointless. I learned from the best, I said. Watched you claw your way to the top of a tower that's already crumbling. You don't know anything about Atlas. I know enough, I said, leaning in so only she could hear. I know about the real numbers behind the Amanda acquisition. About the missing data in the March report. And I know who signed off on it. Her breath caught. There it was. Not fear. Rage. The kind you taste. You don't have proof, she said, her voice razor thin. Don't need it, I whispered. I've got leverage. Her wineglass tipped slightly in her hand. Just enough to drip onto the tablecloth. A dark bloom spread across the linen like a wound. No one else noticed. Outside, thunder growled. The light in the hallway buzzed, then popped, sudden darkness lapping at the edges of the dining room like a slow tide. Elizabeth stood. Excuse me, she said tightly, disappearing down the hall like a shadow slipping out the back door of her own theater. The second she was gone, Mom spoke without looking up. You've always had a way of ruining things. I turned to her, smiling faintly. And you've always had a way of watching things burn without ever lifting a hand. She said nothing. She didn't have to. Dad refilled his glass and didn't meet my gaze. That was his ritual. Disappear in plain sight. I stared at the empty seat Elizabeth had left behind, the warmth still rising from her untouched plate. The salmon flaked under my knife. Each slice, precise. Clean. But beneath the table, my fingers trembled. Not from nerves. From restraint. I hadn't come for a fight. I'd come to end one. Elizabeth was still talking when I ended it. My team's scaling the integration strategy, and the analysts. I'm the new CEO, I said. It landed like a trap snapping shut. The words slid into the space between courses and cracked everything open. The room didn't gasp. It stopped. Like a stage after the final line, before the curtain falls. Elizabeth froze mid-sentence, mid-smirk. Her wine glass hovered in the air, trembling just slightly in her hand. Dad's hand jerked, his fork skittered off the plate, clanging like a bullet casing on porcelain. Mom stared. Her jaw slack, lips parted like the word no was still forming. I didn't blink. I start Monday, I said quietly, laying my napkin across the table like a resignation letter I never had to write. Elizabeth's laugh came late, wrong. Brittle, hollow. Don't be ridiculous. That position, my position, isn't even vacant. It is now, I said. The board voted at 6:15 this morning. The official memo drops in less than 12 hours. You're lying, she said, eyes darting toward Mom, then Dad, looking for anchors that were already drifting. I tapped my phone, turned it toward her. The board memo glowed white against the table. My name, full, undeniable, headlined it like a verdict. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. You're not on the transition team, I said. Because I had to audit it. Her voice dropped to a rasp. You don't belong in that role. I belonged for years, I said, standing slowly. You just never saw it. You couldn't. You were too busy playing queen in a crumbling castle, mistaking titles for terrain. She looked down at the memo like it might rearrange itself. Like it might blink and turn into a joke. Then, barely audible, she asked, I report to you? Starting Monday. Mom made a noise, soft and sharp, like someone swallowing glass. Dad turned to me, stunned. Why wouldn't you tell us? I looked at him, at the ghost of the man who once taught me how to fix a jammed slide projector, how to thread 16mm film like it mattered. That man was gone. This one sat in front of me, small and confused, scotch staining his cuff. Would you have listened? I asked. Silence. Elizabeth's knuckles were white around her glass. I half expected it to shatter. And the Amanda deal, I said, turning back to her. It's not just sloppy. It's dangerous. And it's going under review. You missed nearly $300 million in inherited debt. Her face twisted. You vindictive little. No, I said, voice sharp. Don't mistake clarity for cruelty. You gambled on ignorance. I'm just calling the bluff. I stepped back from the table. The overhead light buzzed as if reacting to the shift. You can scream now, I added, or wait until Monday morning like everyone else. Then I looked at our parents, two aging bystanders in their own lives. Thanks for dinner, I said, and meant it. I needed the final push. Outside, the city had rinsed itself clean. The alley smelled of ozone and scorched tar. I walked past the garbage bins and the dripping fire escape and didn't look back. Behind me, glass shattered. Maybe a wine glass. Maybe something deeper. Monday. Atlas Tower cut into the skyline like a knife buried to the hilt. I parked my Honda beside Elizabeth's obsidian Mercedes and killed the engine. The building glinted in the morning light like it was holding its breath. Donald, the night guard, squinted as I approached. Ma'am? I flashed the badge. The new one. He stared, then grinned. Patricia? You're? CEO, I said. As of 23 minutes ago. He shook his head in wonder. Sandra's gonna flip. That scholarship. She earned it, I said. Just keep me posted. Inside, the lobby murmured with half-formed rumors. Words floated like mist. Internal hire? Some consultant, maybe? Amanda had it in the bag. The elevator opened and I stepped in. Alone. The executive floor smelled like still air and old money. Elizabeth's assistant stiffened at her desk, eyes wide. And Patricia, Miss Thomp. Is she in? I asked. The girl nodded. Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes. Let her know I'll see her in 10. And how should I address you now? I smiled. Patricia will do. The CEO suite opened like a tomb of forgotten power. Mahogany. Leather. Ego soaked into the grain. I crossed the room, opened the laptop, and typed in the new credentials. They welcomed me like they'd been waiting. The screen buzzed. Elizabeth, we need to talk. Now. I stared at the message. Then closed the lid. 10 minutes. Let her sweat. I leaned back, the skyline stretching jagged behind me through the glass wall like a crown made of steel and stormlight. The leather beneath me creaked, my chair now. The city hummed below, oblivious. Or maybe it was holding its breath. Let them wait. Let her wait. The door slammed open with the fury of someone who'd built their life out of glass and just heard the first stone hit. Elizabeth strode in like a storm without lightning, loud, chaotic, powerless. Her heels struck the marble too hard. Her Chanel suit, usually crisp as a lie, hung wrinkled and wrong, betraying a night without sleep and a morning without answers. Her mascara smudged slightly beneath one eye. A crack in the porcelain. She threw the printout across the desk like it was a weapon. What the hell is this? I glanced at it, the internal memo, bleeding ink and desperation. Good morning, Elizabeth, I said, tone velvet over steel. You're early. Please. Sit. I'm not sitting down, she snapped, breath short. You blindsided me. You gutted me. I gave everything to this company. No, I said, calm, surgical. You carved everything you could from it, and called that loyalty. She flinched. Just once. But it was enough. I worked nights, she hissed. Weekends. I cleaned up disasters. Yours, Dad's, the board's. I kept this company alive. You kept yourself afloat. And let others drown. I turned the laptop toward her, files already queued, doctored performance reports, overwritten timestamps, buried red flags. The board has seen everything. Her gaze flicked to the screen, then away, too fast, too practiced. You're bluffing, she said. But her voice broke halfway through. Am I? I tapped one key. The screen bloomed with evidence, each line of code and email like a nail in a coffin she built herself. Your copy-paste audit trail is sloppier than I expected. Her mouth parted, then closed. Her eyes searched the room like it might shift and save her. It didn't. They would never replace me, she said, quieter now. They trust me. The old board might have. The ones you charmed over whiskey and golf retreats. But they're gone now. You know why. The pension scandal. The cover-ups. The sudden retirements. Elizabeth's expression twisted as she realized the rot she'd grown so comfortable in had been cut out beneath her while she smiled for shareholder photos. She collapsed into the chair across from me. Not dramatically. Just, quietly. Her hands curled in her lap, knuckles white. A marionette with her strings fraying. How long, she whispered, not quite looking at me. 5 years, I said. Ever since you lifted my restructuring blueprint and sold it as your own. She didn't deny it. I thought you were drifting, she said, barely audible. Freelancing. Lost. That was the mask, I said. You wore pearls to signal power. I wore silence to build it. The silence stretched. And then? I earned this, she whispered. I did what I had to. No, I said, voice hard now. You took. That's not the same thing. I slid the folder across the desk. She didn't reach for it. Internal transfer, junior operations manager. Her breath hitched. Junior, she said like it was a slur. I'm offering you something real. Modest. Grounded. A place where you can finally do the work instead of pretending you did. Her fist clenched around the edge of the desk. You want to humiliate me. I want accountability. Humiliation's just a side effect. She looked up. And for the first time I saw not rage, but emptiness. Like the spotlight had gone out and she didn't know who she was without it. "I'll resign," she whispered. "You're welcome to." I stood, adjusting my blazer, deliberate. "But if you do, I'm obligated to include your misreporting in the SEC disclosure package. That trail doesn't vanish with your resignation. And no one's hiring a risk with lipstick and a spreadsheet full of ghosts." The intercom buzzed like judgment. "Miss Amanda?" Kevin's voice, steady and clipped. "The board is ready for you." I glanced down at her. Elizabeth stared at nothing. Smaller than I remembered. "Come along," I said. "You've got a presentation. And this time? Let's try using real numbers." The boardroom. The lights were cold, the table long, the chairs unforgiving. 12 new directors, sharp eyes, clean slates, no tolerance for excuses. They sat in a quiet arc like a tribunal, pens poised. Elizabeth stood at the head of the room, clicking through a presentation she hadn't written, can't defend. Her voice shook. She rushed, stumbled, spun fiction into numbers and back again. Slide 12, projections contradicted slide 7. Slide 15, integration timelines impossible even under ideal conditions. Slide 18, liabilities tucked behind ambiguous labels. No one interrupted her. They didn't have to. She was unraveling herself. When the silence became unbearable, I stood. For clarity, I said to the board, my transition teams have already reviewed these figures. The Amanda merger will be extended 6 months. New risk modeling is underway. And the legacy infrastructure issues, those are being addressed by people who actually understand them. The chairwoman leaned forward. Her voice was calm. Surgical. "Excellent initiative, Miss Amanda. Both for revealing the vulnerabilities, and for your prior structural work under the radar. Atlas owes you more than we realized." I inclined my head. "I'm just getting started." Across the table, Elizabeth sat down, quiet, pale, defeated. Her eyes didn't meet mine. She finally looked like someone learning the difference between power and ownership. Elizabeth's head snapped toward the board chair like she'd been struck. "Prior consulting," she repeated, the words rasping out like they cost her something. The chair smiled with measured civility. "You weren't aware? Your sister's been quietly orchestrating nearly every major initiative we've had success with over the last 5 years. Though," she added, her gaze narrowing just slightly, "it seems someone else was more than happy to sign her name over the credits." Elizabeth didn't respond. Couldn't. Her mouth opened once. Then shut. The performance had ended. The actress had forgotten her lines. When the meeting broke and the board filed out with polite nods and quiet approval, I stepped beside her, close enough that only she could hear me. "Status meeting," I said softly. "Tomorrow. 9 o'clock sharp. My office." She nodded like someone nods in a dream. Dazed. Shrinking. I paused in the doorway. "One last cut." "And Elizabeth?" I said, voice velvet with just a hint of ash. "Maybe skip the Chanel. Junior management tends to lean more practical." The skyline outside my office had changed. It wasn't just the view, it was the feeling. No longer a city of untouchable towers. Now it looked like pieces on a board. Movable. Toppleable. Mine to shape. I exhaled into the silence. The Amanda merger still needed scalpel work. The internal architecture was shifting like tectonic plates. But the rot was gone. The bloodletting was over. And in the hollow left behind, something cleaner could grow. My phone buzzed. "Mom, please call us. We need to understand what's happening." I stared at it. For too long. Then typed. "Nothing to understand. Just your nobody daughter doing what she always does, cleaning up everyone else's mess. And winning." I hit send. And let it go. The rest of the afternoon unfolded like a slow-moving apology. They came one by one, faces I remembered as disinterest, condescension, backhanded compliments in elevators. Now they arrived with curated smiles and polished shoes, eager to realign. Suddenly, they'd always believed in me. Suddenly, they'd never approved of Elizabeth's tone. Amazing, really, how fast a backbone melts in the presence of a new throne. By nightfall, the final tokens of the old empire had begun to vanish. Elizabeth's nameplate disappeared without ceremony. Her glass-walled office stood hollow and echoing, a mausoleum built for an ego that couldn't survive sunlight. Kevin, steady and sharp, took her rightful place beside me. The first person I promoted. The first one who'd seen past the masks. The merger team moved like clockwork, guided by strategies I'd mapped out when no one even remembered my last name. And then, just as I was powering down for the night, the final email came. From Elizabeth. You won't get away with this. Family doesn't do this to family. I stared at it, the room wrapped in dusk and low electric hum. The only sound was the city murmuring far below, the sound of people moving forward. I thought of the years. The dinners. The way my name always arrived last, like a footnote. The looks that dismissed, the words that cut and then smiled. The quiet endurance mistaken for weakness. Then I typed. You're right. Family doesn't do this to family. Remember that next time you steal someone's work. See you at tomorrow's meeting. Don't be late. I closed the laptop. Walked to the elevator. And drove the same car I always had, slipping out from beneath a building now held up by my name. 6 months later. Atlas didn't just recover. It evolved. The Amanda merger, once a ticking time bomb, became a case study in corporate resurrection. Harvard Business Review. Forbes. Even TechCrunch. The stock rebounded. The culture shifted. Employees who had once walked on glass now walked with purpose. But I didn't chase press. I chased permanence. I chased systems that outlived me. Stability that didn't depend on performance theater. A company that remembered the difference between building and branding. And Elizabeth? She survived. Sort of. The Mercedes disappeared, reclaimed, like the illusion it was. Now she drove an old Civic. Silver, dented. Reliable. She parked with the rest of the staff. No more priority spots. No more deference. Tuesdays were her new ritual, data review in conference room C, alongside the other managers. She spoke in numbers now. Real ones. Not projections. Not fantasy. And when she presented, she looked people in the eye. She was learning. Painfully. Slowly. But learning. It was a Tuesday. Kevin's voice came through the intercom, softer than usual. Patricia, your parents are here. No appointment. I froze. 6 months of silence. Missed calls. No birthdays. No holidays. Now, they'd skipped every step between denial and appearance. I stood slowly. Send them in. They entered like visitors in a museum, moving carefully, reverently. They scanned the room, seeing something they didn't recognize. No mahogany. No gold trim. Just soft light, warm wood, and open layout. Possibility in the form of space. Mom clutched her purse too tightly. Dad cleared his throat, but no words followed. They looked at me the way people do when they realize they've misjudged the ending of a story for years. They didn't know who I was. Not really. But they were finally ready to find out. Mom wore a navy blazer she'd probably pulled from the back of her closet, sleek, structured, a little stiff. It fit like a costume. Dad, once a presence that swallowed rooms whole, now sat with his shoulders folded in on themselves, his tie slightly loosened. He looked like someone used to leading but no longer sure if anyone would follow. Nice view, he said, his voice flat, eyes scanning the skyline. Better than the corner seat at dinner, I replied, gesturing toward the chairs across from my desk. Go ahead. Sit. They lowered themselves onto the soft conference chairs like they expected them to collapse. Mom clutched her handbag with both hands, like she thought I might take it away. Patricia, she began, voice careful, practiced, like she was testifying. We've been trying to reach you. I know, I said. I've been busy. Running the company you once told me was a distraction. A waste of my potential. But you knew all about sacrifice, right? That's what you always said about Elizabeth's work trips, her 3 a.m. meetings. Her long hours. Dad shifted in his seat. His gaze dropped to the floor, then flicked toward the door, like he wanted to leave before anything irreversible was said. We may have misjudged, he offered. Misjudged, I repeated, tasting the word. That's polite. I turned the laptop toward them. The screen lit up with a curated selection, 5 years of data points and buried truths. Here's what you missed: dinners where I was sat beside Aunt Sandra, the designated disappointment table. Every time I brought up my work, one of you changed the subject. Remember when you skipped the launch party for my firm? Toasted Elizabeth's promotion instead? I remember. Mom blinked hard. We didn't know. No, I said. You didn't ask. I clicked to the next slide, growth metrics, recovery charts, a bullet-pointed summary of Atlas rising from its own ashes. Dad squinted. And now? Now, I said, we've saved the Amanda merger. Tripled our tech footprint. Laid the foundation for global expansion. Atlas is healthier than it's ever been. Silence pressed between us. It didn't feel angry. Just heavy. Like something old finally decomposing. Mom's voice cracked when she asked, and Elizabeth? She's learning, I said. She's showing up. She's failing. She's not pretending. I steepled my fingers, leaned back. But I'm not here to talk about her. I'm not the one trying to understand anymore. That hit. I saw it in their posture. The way Mom's shoulders sank. The way Dad's eyes found nothing to focus on. And then, very softly, Mom reached forward across the desk. Her hand trembled slightly, fingers open. Not demanding. Just asking. To say we were wrong, she whispered. And to try. I looked at her hand. I didn't take it. Not yet. Instead, I said, Kevin. Send her in. Elizabeth entered quietly. No click of power heels, no perfume cloud trailing behind her. Her blouse was wrinkled at the elbows. Her hair, pulled back simply. No logo. No armor. Just a woman, carrying a beige folder. She sat when I nodded. No speech. No defense. She opened the folder and began to read. Her voice low, clear. Numbers. Trends. Outcomes. Real ones. It wasn't dazzling. It wasn't designed to be. It was accurate. When she finished, she looked down. She didn't perform. She just waited. I let the silence breathe. You're improving, I said. It's honest work. You're doing it. She nodded once. No pride. Just quiet endurance. I slid another folder across the desk. She opened it slowly. Her brow furrowed. Promotion, she said, carefully. Senior Operations Manager, I confirmed. You'll lead the new regional office. Minneapolis. The word dropped like frost. Minneapolis? Mom's voice broke from across the room, scandalized. I didn't look at her. Growing market. Full autonomy. Clean slate. Elizabeth stared at the paper for a long moment. Her hands were still. Her face unreadable. Why me? She asked finally. It wasn't suspicious. Just honest. Because you stopped pretending, I said. And you started showing up. A long beat passed. I thought I might have to explain more. But I didn't. Across the room, our parents sat as still as furniture. Tourists in a new order. The reversal had finished drawing itself, and now they were just witnessing it. The golden child, humbled. The quiet daughter, crowned. Finally, Elizabeth looked up, not pleading. Not angry. Just present. I'll go, she said. I nodded. You'll do well. And somehow, I believed it. That night, the city outside my window was velvet dark, the towers blinking red like signals between stars. I stood alone, watching my own reflection ghosted in the glass. Behind me sat the desk. The folders. The choices. I didn't need applause. I didn't need them to understand the whole story. I just needed them to know it had always been mine. I'll take it, Elizabeth said, her voice low and rough-edged. Not a thank you. Not an apology. Just a surrender. Or maybe the first real decision she'd made without trying to win. She stood. Straightened her blouse. Walked out with nothing in her hands but a folder and the weight of who she used to be. Behind her, silence. Our parents remained in their seats, dazed. Like the oxygen had been quietly siphoned from the room and they were only now learning to breathe without it. The architecture of their certainty had collapsed. Years of assumptions, roles, and quiet favoritism, all suddenly, glaringly wrong. Dad cleared his throat. The sound was thin. We got it wrong, he said. No qualifiers. No softening. I looked at him. A man who'd once dominated every dinner table with stories and pronouncements. Now, he looked smaller. More human. A little ashamed. Yes, I said. No anger in it. Just fact. Mom's fingers flexed around the handle of her handbag. She hadn't let go of it since she sat down. As if letting go of something, anything, might unmoor her entirely. She blinked. Is it too late? To undo it? I asked. Yes. Her jaw tensed. Grief, not of someone who lost a child, but of someone realizing the child they had never truly seen. To start again, she asked, voice breaking around the edge. Maybe get it right this time? I was quiet. I let the moment sit there, real and unsanitized. Then I reached up and touched my earrings, small, elegant, imperfect pearls. Not valuable in money. Only in meaning. Grandma gave them to me without fanfare, without needing a reason. Her love had no receipts. That depends, I said, on whether you're ready to see me clearly. Without comparing me to the version of me you built in your heads. They nodded. This time, not like people agreeing, but like people accepting. Good. Come to dinner, I said. My place. No performance. No gold star seating. Just a table. And 4 chairs. That's the only structure I'm offering. Later, after the office had emptied, I stood at the window, watching the city pulse with ordinary grace. Not a kingdom. Just a grid of lives, each lit window a small world. My phone buzzed. Elizabeth. Thank you. For not finishing me off when you could have. For giving me something to rebuild from. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed. This one wasn't a gift. You earned it. That's what makes it real. Another ping. Mom. We walked through your home today. It's warm. Alive. Not a showpiece. Just you. We were wrong. We're sorry. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I crossed to the far corner of the office, back where the old storage drawers lived. From the bottom one, I pulled out a frame. The photo was faded, tucked behind warped glass. 4 people. Imperfect. Smiling in that unguarded, pre-damage way. Before the promotions. Before the labels. Before one of us became the mirror, and the other, the shadow. I carried it to my desk. Pressed the intercom. Kevin? Yes? There's a photo here. Family photo. Bring it forward. To where? I paused. To my desk, I said. Front and center. Let's stop pretending it belonged in a drawer. Outside, the city didn't roar. It hummed, steady, relentless, alive. Success, I was learning, wasn't a crown. It was quiet. Sometimes invisible. It was a promise kept to yourself. The promise to rebuild, even when no one watched. To forgive, not to forget, but to choose peace over pride. To be powerful without becoming cruel. To be kind without becoming weak. And sometimes, the most radical act of leadership is simple. Pulling out one more chair. And sitting down with the people who got it wrong. To see if they're ready to try again.